Welcome back, everybody, to the Insightful Podcast. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. Today, we are going to be speaking about what you do isn't who you are. But before we get into that, if you guys have been enjoying the podcast so far, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on Spotify. Let's jump straight into it. You guys know how I like to do it. 5 points, give you some value. Hopefully, you take something away from it and just get straight to the point. These are how these solo episodes are going to look. And in the future, the guest episodes are coming back. It's just been hard with scheduling with the guests, but I'm telling you right now that we're going to start to release a lot of guest episodes in the near future. So stay tuned. So, for the first point on what you do isn't who you are, is your job is a role, not your identity. You can lose a title, get laid off, or switch careers, but who you are goes deeper than a resume. I feel like a lot of the time we tie what we do on a daily basis to our value as a person. And if, things aren't going the way you want it to go, you feel less of yourself. You don't feel like you're good enough. And I think that's just not a great way to look at it because you are more than that. There was a time where you didn't have that job. There was a time where you weren't pursuing that dream. And, you were still there. You were still a person that people like to be around. So I think, as we get older, we tend to tie our value into what we do on a daily basis and I guess what we offer to the world. But I think it just goes deeper than that. I think it's more than just the work you put out into the marketplace. I think it's more about how you affect others and how you inspire others, because that is way more important, in my opinion, than just a title that you're given because you do a certain thing, right? For point two, and this one affects me a lot, is productivity does not equal self worth. You're not only valuable when you're achieving something. Resting doesn't make you less worthy. This was something that I realized very recently is I like tied my entire self-worth to how productive I was on a day-to-day basis. And I think there's so much more than just that, right? Because you may feel that, you know, if you're not doing something productive every single day or every single minute of a day, you just don't feel like yourself, or you feel like you're wasting time, or you're not good enough. And I think this is a very bad mindset to have, and that it can spiral out of control. Because then when you actually do need rest, when you are feeling burnt out, you can't rest because your mind's going a million miles a minute telling yourself that you're not good enough, right? So I think it's super important to not tie your self worth to how productive you are, because you will not be productive 24/7, and then what happens when you're not? You're just going to hate yourself. And that was me for the longest time. For point three, it's burnout happens when identity equals output. If your entire identity is wrapped in your work, then failure feels like death. That's a dangerous trap. And it kind of builds off of what we were saying previously. And I think that's super important, is burnout happens when identity equals output. I felt really burnt out this past week. I took like 4 days off the gym. I wasn't really working on my business and, my content. And I think it was because of that. I just kept telling myself that every single waking moment I needed to be doing something productive. And if I wasn't, it was a wasted day or a wasted hour. And I think you get so tied up into that mindset that it's very hard to escape it, right? But what I realize is whenever I get to that point now, I'm just going to take a couple days off. Take a couple days off from focusing on being productive, enjoy life a bit, take some time off the gym. You know, I don't think you skipping the gym for 3 days after you've been going for 6 months straight, I don't think that's going to make or break your physique. And, maybe you tell yourself that to feel better about yourself, but it's not the reality, right? I kind of looked at what I was doing and I'm like, I've been going to the gym consistently since January, obviously taking rest days, but, sometimes not taking rest days. And what, I can't take 3 days off? Is that going to really ruin my physique? And like scientifically, it doesn't. And, sometimes it's something you just tell yourself, like, oh, I'm not making any progress because I'm not going to the gym, right? I went to the gym today, first day back, and I felt amazing. I feel like that rest was much needed. So I think it's important to not just wrap yourself around your identity with your output, because then that's when actual burnout happens. For point four, Purpose isn't always a paycheck. Sometimes your most meaningful impact comes outside of your main job through relationships, creativity, or service to others. I think a lot of times you get wrapped up in the daily task list and you don't see that you're able to affect others' lives in a positive direction just by, doing things that aren't work related, right? Just helping people, listening to others, helping people through a tough time, whatever that might look like. That is super important. And that is something that I think is slept on because we're so focused on the busyness of life, right? So purpose isn't always wrapped around a paycheck. You could have a really good purpose that is completely outside of your daily work, right? And I think that's super important to sometimes focus on that as much as you can, because I know it can be difficult, but just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's impossible, right? For the fifth and final point, who you are shows up in how you live. Your values, how you treat others, and how you show up daily reveal more about you than your LinkedIn bio ever will, right? And I think that's super important. You just need to kind of focus on the daily things that you do that build you up into the person you are today. For example, becoming a very good listener has only happened because I've given myself time to be more present, to not be, when I was younger, I would be talking to someone and the whole time while they're talking, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. Where now is like, it just feels so effortless to communicate with people because I'm way more present, right? So, and that came from my daily meditations, my, not scrolling as much, listening actively to new people that I would meet. And I think that's super important, right? That's all I wanted to go over in this episode of the podcast. If you guys enjoyed, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know any future topics you'd like me to discuss in the future. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. Take care, everybody, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Crush a cold to a diamond, eyes forever shining. Your beauty alone inspire a nigga to rhyming.